losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. But put all of that aside, just on a fiscal level.
What? Like, you live to work? No, you live to work, yeah. I think that after you retire, you can still do stuff. There is like a sliver of truth that I will acknowledge here, which is that the American conception of retirement is extremely grim, where you work until you're old, and then it's like, oh, you've saved up some money, time to do nothing for the rest of your life. That sounds awful. You know, you can still do stuff when you're old. Hell, if you want to, you can even work, you know? There are less physically demanding jobs that you might gain satisfaction from, the same way that it's possible for a person who's 30 to enjoy the job that they have. You know, I think that, like, the main issue here is that work for a lot of people is tedium, but tedium is also all they know. So when they retire, they like, couldn't you travel? You can't travel for like 20 years until death, unless you're very, 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 very wealthy. But even then, traveling on its own is kind of empty, right? You know, purposeless. Unless you have something rooting it, like someone you're with, or like a family, or some kind of central experience. I'm not saying you should work until you die. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of Americans don't know what they want to do with life if it wasn't for work. And that's, I think, a social issue. I think that, you know, I think that ties to the death of third places and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can't let work be your entire personality, you know? Anyway, what Ben Shapiro is saying is psychotic. It's like you have like two sides of the spectrum, and the one that he's taking is, no, in order to solve the problem of people feeling purposeless after they retire, they should just work until they die, which, in case, you know, like, okay, thank you, Ben.
Level, and on a logical level. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt established 65 as the retirement age, the average life expectancy in the United States was 63 years old. Today, the average life expectancy in the United States is close.
Okay, once more, anytime you hear a person say average life expectancy when referring to any time period that's before now, alarm bells should be ringing in your head. You know that statistic you've heard about how the average life expectancy was 35 back in the Middle Ages? That's because a lot of babies died. That's average life expectancy. For most of human history, if you were able to make it to adulthood, you could reliably make it into your 70s. We're better about it now. Certainly the average age of, like, elderly people living has gone up, but only a little bit, really. There are biological limits on how long the human body can keep going, regardless of any medical support or whatever else we can provide it. So more people make it to old age now, but back then, you know, there were a decent number of people who, made it to 75, 80, 85. More today, but still. Yeah, we have increased health span as well, which is the more important thing, I would say.
Close to 80. It's totally insane that you believe that you should be able to work from the time that you are essentially 20 to the time that you are 65, which is a 45-year period, pay in, and then you will receive Social Security benefits sufficient to support you and your family, you and your wife or whatever, for like another 20 years. That's crazy talk.
Why? 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 Ben, quick question. Really quick. I've got a question. Why? 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 All of this is hypothetical anyway, because it's not like anyone has Social Security benefits anymore. Now that the median job for a person in their 20s is working like 6 different delivery app driver gigs that overlap. You know, they have all of them active on their phone at once, and they're just zipping around. Like, it's all of this is purely hypothetical. It's not like anyone watching this right now is going to retire. It's not like I'm going to retire. You know, there's no Social Security pay-in for sole proprietorship on a YouTube channel, as it turns out. Got to do your own saving for that one. The Social Security barely pays out enough anyway. Now, there is, again, a nugget of truth here when it comes to, like, the ability for us to pay out. And the truth is, and this is the truth, Social Security is going to go bankrupt. We simply will not have enough money to pay everyone, okay? So what can we do about that? Why is that the case? Well, I would argue that this is another example of the problem when you have a government payment program that defers to the cost of private industry. It's the same reason why, if the government is trying to negotiate healthcare costs with private insurance companies or pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical company is like, this vial of medicine, $1 billion. And the government can be like, okay, fine, all right, hand it over, because they're obligated by, by congressional spending. Like, they're going to get the goddamn thing. It's why it's so important for the government to be able to negotiate prices to be lower. Basically, what I'm saying is, care for seniors should be subsidized at a decommodified level. Like, the state should decommodify and heavily subsidize housing and retirement centers for elderly people, so that rather than Social Security being bled away by extremely exploitative retirement homes filled with rapists, the government can manage these programs better and cheaper. They're extremely exploitative. There are a lot of problems with this. It would be the exact same as like the government decommodifying housing in an area would be a lot cheaper than the government giving you the money to pay rent. Does that make sense? So this is just another issue of corporations fleecing money the government gives you. The government can give you your Social Security, but that doesn't prevent private corporations from f***ing you over. Sam Cedar on Social Security funding from 335. I love Sam Cedar.
Let's talk. I want to talk about this except for that Social Security is great, particularly for people on it. This is a clip. That the biggest part of the budget,
I'll
more
watch
or
this.
less,
I don't care.
is Social Security and Medicare, right?
And Medicaid,
and Medicaid.
Entitlement programs.
Yeah, you can call them entitlement programs.
They are.
I call them social insurance programs because
Tomato.
That's what they really are.
90% of the budget, I want to say.
No, the military is about $850 billion. Social Security is like $1.7 trillion. I think Medicare is probably close to like.
Social Security does cost a lot of money, guys, and I do think that it needs to be addressed, but the solution isn't to get rid of Social Security or even raise the retirement age. The solution is to like cut out the sort of like fiscal the bleeding, that we suffer from allowing all these payments to just get absorbed into an exploitative system of capital raising.
The charge
$700 billion, and then there's
60%.
other. But
more. It's a high number. It's a big number. You're right. It's a high number.
You'll find that's it's. I think our annual budget is somewhere around like 2.7 trillion, and the military is like 800 billion, 900 billion. That you can see anyways that they show us.
Yeah, pie chart.
But nevertheless, Social Security, Medicare, the two biggest things that the government does are wildly popular. Medicare, you come from the insurance business, you probably know this. To administer health insurance, there's like a 15% cost in the administration of that health insurance. For Medicare, 3%. Far more efficient. And copays are less. The whatever you want to call it, consumer satisfaction. I don't like to think of citizens as consumers, but the satisfaction's huge, through the roof, particularly when people use it. It's people appreciate it who don't use it. If I got my parents, they're on Medicare, I'm pretty psyched about it because I don't have to take care of them. My mother's in a nursing home now. It's Medicaid that's doing that. I'm not responsible for that cost. Social Security through the roof. In fact, I think even a majority of Republicans want to expand.
But popular is not a way to qualify something. If I went out there and I gave satisfaction. If I went to high school and I said, guys, I'm giving dime bags to everybody weed.
Actually, I think that the popularity of a policy that helps tens of millions of people not live in poverty, I think that actually is a very good way of determining how valuable something is in a democratic society. I don't know. I feel like that's at least a factor in it. Maybe.
I'd be a very popular kind of high school. So that is a wrong way to qualify.
You said efficiency.
Yeah.
Medicare, 3% administrative costs versus 15%.
That's like the kid that's running for class president. It's like every Friday we're throwing up.
Garbage fit, by the way. Armholes way too low. This is like some trash off the rack slim fit stuff. Wearing it over a polo. Look at this.
Pizza party.
Well,
he's going to get everybody's vote. But who's paying for the pizza party? Sam?
Well, workers. In fact, I would argue
Sam looks
that
great.
we should be actually removing the cap on Social Security taxes, because right now, it goes only up $160,000, right? There's a cap. Traditionally, Social Security has captured or touched 91% of the country's income. You follow me? And now it's somewhere down in like the mid 80s because of wealth
yeah,
inequality.
But your argument on the flip side of it, the argument can be as well to say, well,